even 10 minutes a day is progress. It's not much, but it's progress. So yeah, just give yourself that time to do a little bit of art.
In part one of this episode, recorded in 2020, we got to know Pedro Loureiro, a Portuguese artist and teacher who started by becoming an architect. After leaving Portugal during a recession, he and his partner moved to Sweden to try a new life while rediscovering his love for art. Pedro returned to his home country 2 years later and started working as an artist at an architecture firm. Today, in part two, we catch up with Pedro and talk about his journey to becoming the incredible art teacher he is today, the difference between making art and teaching it, how Pedro keeps his creative life while tending to his full time job and family, especially after becoming a father, and insights on Pedro's new and upcoming course on figure drawing. But before we start, I just want to keep you posted on what's coming. Pedro's upcoming figure drawing fundamental courses is split into two parts, each with its own difficulty level. So, part one will give you the foundation to take your figure drawing in any direction, whether you intend to do quick sketches or draw realistically. And then in part two, we will introduce watercolor. You can use it to add shape, dimension, conveying clothes, believable fabric movement, hairstyles, texture, and posing from different angles. So, in short, if you want to learn how to draw people, how to pose them, how to bring that extra skill to your art, you can enroll for any part or both parts of this course at a discounted price. All the information is at etralab.com/ Pedro course 2, and that's the number 2. Okay, that's it from me, and let's dive right into the episode.
Let's do that trip back to memory lane. This was, I believe, because I'm not sure, I'm absolutely not sure about this, but I believe the first workshop I taught was not far from where my journey in illustration also started. So back in Sweden, when I was in Sweden, it was 2014,
Okay.
and I was invited by a actually two events happened. Two events happened in Sweden. One was the first one was teaching a guest class in the architecture school and architecture faculty in Lund, in the town where I was living, which is like a big university town, small town, but like with a huge, very important university. And I befriended an architect there, a Spanish architect, but he was living in Sweden for many, many years. And he invited me kindly to teach a class, one class of architecture design. So I was guiding students just during those 3 hours on how to orient their architecture designs for that semester and the for that assignment. And the second class was a sketching class. So I was teaching blind contour drawing to students, to the same students basically. This was in a different occasion. Also, but I think the first time I thought about this was like just improvised classes. I was feeling very green as a teacher still. And the first time I felt like I was actually teaching a proper workshop was in 2014, still in Sweden. But I was invited by a bunch of students from the faculty of, I'm not sure, I think they were a class from a master's in ecological sciences, something like that. Yeah. So basically, scientists, environmental scientists, that wanted to have a little bit of fun with sketching. And I went at them with a few exercises on blind contour drawing, portrait drawing, portrait challenges. Everybody was sketching each other. They were having fun because all the sketches were loose and wacky, as blind contour sketches usually are. And it was really fun. I think people really enjoyed it, and it was like the first time that I felt, this could actually work.
Just a
Um,
little clarification here for those of us who may not know what blind contour drawing is. Can you quickly clarify it?
so it's basically you have to sketch without looking at what you're doing in the paper. So you grab a pen, you look at something, someone or something, and you draw that person or that object or that space, following the lines with your eyes, and the hands does exactly the same gesture. And if you're very concentrated in the end, you'll get an amazing sketch. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just about like having that connection, hands eye connection, and not thinking about symbols or interpretations or anything like that. It's just like you see it, you sketch it, and if it turns out right, even better. If it doesn't turn out right, you just do 100 more of them, and you'll be fine. You'll be in the right way, in the right world to sketching,
Great.
to learning how to sketch.
So yeah, so you were doing those exercises and a couple more with the students, and yeah, how did that turn out?
It went very. I think it went very well. Students had fun. Those are very fun classes, the blind contour ones, because they're very tense, but they're also very liberating in a way. And like in the end, you get really wacky portraits.
Uh-huh.
It's not actually the people that are represented, but somehow students see that, okay, this is not that person. Like the eyes are like out of place, but people can actually see that there's a faint expression there that represents that person. So it's much closer to reality than if we would like do a proper sketch with looking at the paper.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah,
And that just kind of got you into the world of teaching, so it just developed from there.
yeah, I think so. Then a little bit. Yeah, I think another big help was so that was like band-aid off. Okay, let's try this teaching thing and see how it works. Band-aid off. It hurts, and it was healed. It was quickly healed after that. After that, when I came back to Portugal in 2015, um, I started going to every single urban sketchers meeting that I could, just to get together with the whole bunch again,
Mm-hmm.
get connected with the new people that were rising in the urban sketchers atmosphere, in the urban sketchers arena, and like just getting to know people, getting to know what was going on. That kind of jump started me into more teaching. Basically, I think I can't remember, but I organized a few workshops. I'm pretty sure,
And that's
some
first,
here
all
and
of
there.
those were in person, and you eventually started teaching online as well.
Yeah, online was actually with Etcher.
Oh, so
I
we
think
got you to start online teaching 2020.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
The
more or less
online.
simultaneous. It was more or less simultaneous because I also teach a local group here,
Hmm.
online classes, but like because it's during the week and
Oh
everybody's
yeah.
in their homes or getting back to work, it's much more practical to have it online. Of course, people are eager to come back to offline, on location workshops. But I mean, the online will never leave us. I think, and this is very practical for some occasions and some kinds of workshops. And I started with that group as
Hmm.
well, the local group called the Group Riscado, and with Etcher. I think Etcher came first. So
Oh,
thanks,
thank you. I didn't know
thanks
we
to
were we
this.
were propulsing you into the online world. I mean, you would have done it
Yeah.
either way because of all your connections. But oh, thank you. I had no idea. All right,
No,
so
no, no. Thank you. Oh,
yeah.
just to complete, just wrapped up this Portugal cycle. I think like I did workshops here and there, but I think the main thing was the main event that got me into like a whole nother level of teaching was actually two things. The first thing was I took a course, like a quick 1 month course we have here in Portugal, which is called like it's a course on learning how to teach, basically.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
I just don't know how to translate this to
Yeah, I
English,
mean,
but
because
no,
teaching is not just here's what I do. You have to explain
yeah,
how and why you do what you do. And
Yeah,
that's
and
not just, doesn't come naturally to people most of the times.
yeah, it does not. It does not. It's actually very checklisty
Huh.
in a way. It's very technical, and they give you like in 1 month. It was like a really intense month, where or month and a half, where they gave you like the all the tools you need to do a course or a workshops or any kind of uh, educational event, and they give you all the tools you need to do any kind of events, any kind of educational events. That is what I mean. So set goals, set the set the learning goals, set the tools you need, set the timing. Like everything was very structured,
Wow.
and it was like I think it's exaggerated in a way, but it got me into thinking, okay, what do I need? Before that, it was like, okay, let's do something fun. After the course, I was actually thinking about, okay, what do I want students to take out from this?
Great.
What do I want students, and very specific things, how, like answering how, with what, and in which time, and like all these kinds of questions I would have to answer to myself before I would teach the students. And yeah, this was the first and the first moment. And the second moment was when I got the chance to teach at the 10 by 10, which was an Urban Sketchers major event,
Okay.
Worldwide events throughout the whole year. It was when the Urban Sketchers turned 10, the 10th anniversary of the international community. It was 2017, I think. I don't want to make any mistake. And like many cities throughout the world joined this initiative of having workshops throughout the year. And Lisbon joined up with fellow sketcher Mário Linhares, leading the path. He organized a course here in Portugal, here in Lisbon, and like there were 10 classes, one for him and three for each of the teachers he chose. He chose three teachers. I was among them. Very honored. It was like a major leap of trust for Mario, I think, because my record as a teacher was very short. So I was really happy. But I think like he trusted me, and it worked out for the best.
Yeah.
And it was like three great workshops that were really structured, really okay, we'll get this out of these 3 hours. And it was really fun. It was like 25 students at the time, like in presence, and I was like completely overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do.
Well, you were pretty, I don't like to say green because that's not the term I'm looking for. You're pretty new to teaching, yet
I was green.
you were, well, even though you didn't have a whole lot of experience, something must have been working for all of that to happen, because opportunities don't just, they do come when people are prepared for them. So congratulations. I think that is very most well earned. So
thank you very much.
how do you, since you're talking about teaching and making as different things, so would you correlate them to each other? What is the difference between making art and teaching?
Teaching is a little bit kind of intense or demanding, is what I want to say, because you have to process, like when I'm sketching, it feels very natural. It just like flows out of the pen. If something fails, it's only me to blame, and I can always try it again, right? When it comes to teaching, the stakes are a little bit higher.
Okay.
Or at least I think that the stakes are a little bit higher, so that this gets the feeling of the higher stakes gets into my mind, and I start to be more demanding with myself, in the sense that I have to make this work not only for me, but for the 100 people that are going to show up for this workshop. And it has to mean something to them individually.
Wow.
Everybody has to pick something up from this. And I put that pressure on myself. And when it's the planning stage, it's very, very stressful. When I'm teaching, I don't even think about it. And after that, it comes the relief. And usually everything goes right, of course, because it was kind of well thought out. And but like it's just very tense from the starting of the planning to the actual starting of the workshop.
You take it very
Uh,
seriously. It feels like you take it very, very seriously.
yeah, I think so, and I think it has to do with the it has to do with the course that I took on teaching how to, because they really put us up to the challenge of, okay, we are responsible for these people and you are
Wow.
responsible for what they bring home, and oh my gosh, the responsibility of it all.
Look,
Of course, no, as time goes by, as time goes by, it gets a little bit easier, of course. So I'm
obviously.
kind of exaggerating, but
And
in the beginning it was
you're doing
tough.
something right. I didn't prepare testimonials to bring to this interview, but you are one of the most loved teachers in our platform, and we have over 200 teachers there. In the
Oh,
testimonials that speak to your capabilities as a teacher and
really?
artist are so generous. Everyone is so generous, and so true.
No,
I agree with each one of them. So you're doing,
thank you so much.
of course, you're doing something right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone who dropped. If you haven't
Thank
dropped
you.
a comment on Pedro's class and you took it, please go to our website and drop a comment there because it really helps out. Uh, it's real proof. It's from real people, and yeah, I'm very suspicious because I can be biased
Mhm.
because I work here, but I try not to get, you know, tainted by
Yeah.
my role. I try to be very, very honest and neutral in everything I say. Okay, so do you love teaching?
Um, I enjoy it. I've come to realize over the years that teaching is. I'm never going to let go teaching. So sketching comes naturally, and teaching has to be structured and thought. When it comes to teaching and preparing a course, I kind of have to process and realize what I've learned from sketching,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the key moment. You know, like that's and I think that's like you kind of wrap up what you've learned yourself in the past year or in the past couple of years or in the past couple of months. You kind of wrap it up, synthesize it, and you have to output it. In order to output it, you have to write it down or you have to plan it out. In that sense, you're kind of, at least I feel like I'm kind of solidifying what I know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because if I'm sketching, I'm just learning intuitively,
Mm-hmm.
like unplanned, and I don't actually realize what I am actually learning. When it com- when I try to plan a workshop on that subject, then I realize that, okay, I've learned this by doing that. I learned this by doing that, and then I try to transpose those tidbits of information now that are now realized, and I try to turn them into exercises. So it feels kind of the end of the process of learning for myself.
Okay.
It's like I have to realize that I've learned stuff in order to teach them.
So in a way, sketching makes you a better teaching, and teaching makes you a better sketcher.
Yeah, yeah, it's a feedback loop for sure. I think that's a really great way of looking at it.
Right? Kind of symbiosis thing
It's
here. So you can't drop one because the other kind of depends on it. So looks to me like there's love here
sketching.
for both of them.
Yeah, probably is, but really, like it's more like it's a tense love.
Well,
It's a tense love.
love love
But
isn't
it's a
pink
love.
and rose petals without thorns and rainbows and unicorns. Love is intense. Love love requires work. I don't want to go into discussing what love is in this podcast. That's not the theme. But if love requires
Oh,
hard
oh,
work, then
I got the perfect analogy.
oh,
Sorry.
come on. Yes, bring it.
Okay, so sketching is like being in a relationship, and teaching how to sketch is like being in in therapy, couples therapy, in the sense that you have to realize what love is and what your partner is and what your partner represents to you, and that's what teaching is. It's like, okay, so I've learned this by sketching. Now I have to close the loop by realizing what I've learned and transmitting into other people.
Okay.
Communicating with people.
Okay.
Can I be counseling?
Counseling. So teaching is like
Teaching myself.
counseling, folks. Straight from the horse's mouth. There you go. So come to counseling, so you get better at your love relationships. So you gotta go and
Yep.
go and dig deep. So between this duality here between teaching and making art, we kind of touched upon this on the first episode, but I'd like to see how much the answer changed now. What makes you so passionate about making art?
Hmm. Um, I'm probably not going to overlap from the last podcast because I can't remember what I said back at the time.
Good.
So it's going to be a fully honest answer. What makes me passionate about arts? I think it's when I'm sketching, I'm not very concerned about the final result. What interests me more is what I learn from the process, whether it's learning for myself, learning a new technique, or learning how to handle a different tool, or learning how to draw a different kind of building, or what interests me most actually is getting to know the subject that I'm actually sketching. So I'm very interested in repertoire sketching and like journalistic sketching and anthropological sketching, for instance. It's when you use sketching as a tool to get to know your subject better. And I used to do this, like I used to do this kind of thing a lot. I would just take out my sketchbook out into the streets, and like get to know someone, or by sketching them, and by like recording on the sidelines what they were telling me, or a building or a part of town which I wasn't familiar with. So let's just like sketch it down just to understand whether it was the architectural proportions, or the social dynamics of the neighborhood, for instance, or how people moved about, what they're like. I used to go to marketplaces like last weekend, like we did last weekend, and just sketch the activities there, to sketch how people go about their activities. And like that's what interests me. What comes out in the sketch later, that's just a side effect. It might look nice and everything. It might do, like it's a fine record of whatever I learned. But like I usually think that all this, like these this sketchbook here in the back. I mean, if there's a fire in my apartment, knock wood, but if there's a fire in my apartment, all this goes up in flames. But the memories of those sketches and the things that I learned from them are actually what interests me the most. So this is just like a side effect of my passion about art. So it's not art per se; it's more like using art to get to know other things.
If you're listening to the audio only of this episode, please head over to YouTube, because Pedro is backed up by a pile of sketchbooks behind him. He has a full shelf, a full range of shelves filled, jam-packed with sketchbooks. All of them
ranging from 2001, I think.
Oh my God, up until the present day is 2023, July, the day of this interview. So. Yeah, plenty of memories there. Let's talk a little bit about your course. So the day of this interview, we're in July 2023. Back in 2020 something, I can't recall, 21 or 22, you did a course called Introduction to Sketching. It was a huge success, but it was done a long time ago. The video quality was not the best. So we rebooted it. We relaunched it January 2023. It went really, really well. Everyone loved it. We had a lot of participation. It was great. Because everyone loved it, and you specifically, because as I was speaking about a while ago, a lot of the testimonials were asking for you to come back with something else. And I'm like, okay, I'd love to have Pedro back. So what can we do together? So this September, you're doing another course with us that launches in September called Figure Drawing Fundamentals. And it's a much bigger course. It has a part 1 and it has a part 2. And I'd love to hear all about it. So just start with the first question. What is this course about?
So this course is going to be about getting familiar with sketching the human figure. It's going to be like a very loose approach to sketching. It's not going to be a very realistic or academic way of approaching the human figure. It's going to be more of a flowy, loose approach to getting the gesture right, getting the posture right, just getting that expression right and very quickly. So it's going to be a little bit about sketching more the skeletons and filling them up with the. I think it's going to be fun. For the first part, it's going to be sketch only. So basically, pen or pencil only. So we're going to just to do lines. And in the second part, we're going to introduce watercolor, but as a way to convey volume. So in the first part, we'll create structures of expression, bodily expressions and facial expressions. And on the second part, we'll fill that up with volume and with shadows and with light and shadow, basically, which is what watercolor is good for.
And who is this course for?
So it's divided into two parts exactly to fit two different crowds, two different set of students. The first part will be more for beginners. So people that want to like just grab a pen and start getting confident in how to sketch people. People and postures and like even stick figures. We're going to do a little bit of stick figuring as well. So that's how beginner friendly it's going to be. And the second part, the watercolor part, where we fill up with lights and shadows and volume, it's going to be a little bit more it's going to feel a little bit more intermediate. So there's a little bit of something for everybody. So if you're a beginner and you're really passionate about like progressing in your art, I think you'll find it very easy to transition from the first part to the second part. So from the beginner part to the intermediate part with ease.
Great. All right. So we have part 1, we have part 2. It starts on early September. All the dates, all the details can be found on our website. Again, just go to etrela.com/Loureiro to find all the links associated with this. Part 1 will go immediately after part 2. Pedro, I believe part 1 is about 4 to 5 classes long, and part 2 is 4 as well.
Yeah.
So it will start in September and wrap up around October, early November, if I'm not mistaken. So what pain points will the course solve for the students? How will we get out of that course as better?
Yeah. So posture and like the posture will be a definitely highlight on the first one. Postures of people, like people standing up, people sitting down, like all that kind of thing. I'm going to get you familiar with just really quickly grabbing the expression of that person and just jot it down really quick, as if you were doing like a stick figure, but a stick figure with some a little bit more realism than just a stick figure. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be something like you're going to jot down exactly what you are familiar with. So if you're going for stick figures, it's fine. If you're going for something more realistic, it's also fine. It's just to get that, that articulation of like a body moving, and then you just immediately capture the articulations of how the arm connects to the torso, how the torso connects to the heads, and how the head connects to the hips, and the hip bones connect to the arm bones, and all that kind of stuff. And also for the head's expressions, like how when like the head tilts, what happens when the person smiles, what happens when the person frowns, what happens when like profiles are different from frontal portraits, and we're going to analyze all that, not so much from the from the proportions aspect. We're not going to insist much on the proportion aspect of it. So your sketches on the end might feel wacky, but they will feel like real people, or at least they will feel like comic book characters, which is something I also love. And they teach us a lot as well. So, I mean, if your people are not realistic at the end of the course, it doesn't matter. It just matters that you're feeling confident about sketching them, and you can take this learning in many directions. So basically, if you want to take it to the more realistic side, you can progress on that way. If you want to take it more on the comic book side, you can progress on that way. So this just gives you the base to go in either direction that you want to go. And that was it, I think.
That was it. So one last
Yeah.
question in terms of watercolor. So part two will introduce watercolor here. Can you expand a little bit more what we will learn? What will watercolor add to this?
Yeah. So watercolor is great for like really quick washes, and with that we have volume and gradient washes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, like, if you think of a leg, like a leg is lighted from one side and it's shaded on the other sides. So watercolor is ideal to just convey that sense of light on this side and shadow on that side, and there's like a gradient effect going around it. So it's going to be mostly about that, about like how to complement our line sketches with volume and with lights and with shadows, and how those shadows and how those lights and those shadows also affects the expressions that we have. Because if I'm smiling and there's a light coming from below, I may be like a vampire, like smiling like in a horror movie. Small things like the smile is lighted from different ways, from different directions, can feel very different. So we'll learn how light and shadow can
Drama.
help with that.
Yeah, adding
Can add
drama.
drama.
One last question. If you had to pick one big takeaway out of the whole course, what would that be?
So at the end of this course, I'm hoping that we'll be prepared to quickly grab an expression, quickly understand an expression, a bodily expression or a posture or anything that you see in a person, and quickly put it to paper.
To wrap up this interview, so now that we had the glimpse about what is it that you've been doing in how teaching became such an essential part of your art making progress, what does the future look like for you now? What are your next steps?
Well, I definitely don't want to give up teaching because of that like feedback loop that we spoke about. Of course, that's a given. I would like to have, I would like to uh, work a little bit more with the repertoire sketching. Actually,
Mm.
it's something that I'm on the lookout for. Like repertoire sketching is all about. It's all about what the urban sketchers community was about in the beginning. It was the urban sketchers were founded by a journalist that also sketched his pieces on the Seattle Times, and Gabi Campanario, he's called. And I would like to get back to that, like to that feeling of catching the stories, sketching the stories of the everyday, even in my town, like just joining up with the newspaper or some media outlets and just go out and find the stories with the journalists and sketch them. Some stories are more some I think some stories of the cities and of the worlds are, I think they reveal themselves more if they are sketched than if they are photographed. So like sketching sometimes is a tool to engage with people, and most of the times good stories come from that engagement that we get. Yeah, that's something I definitely want in my future. And also, I would like to try storyboarding for either cinema or like
Really?
any kind of storyboarding for events is something that I did recently, and it worked out really nice for event planning. And it's basically down to the same base concept. It's about storytelling. So anything that has to do with storytelling in my like, in sketching is somewhere that I want to go. Even there's an idea for a comic book, but that's like a 1 year project, which I cannot take right now. But like everything that has to do with story and with sketching,
Hmm.
storytelling and with sketching, that's what I want to be.
Wow, amazing. And we didn't talk about this in either interview, but I really do admire your passion for art because For those of you listeners who don't know, so Pedro is the father of a really young child. How old is Miguel right now?
He is 21 months old, so
Oh,
almost two.
almost 2 years old. So, yeah, when I first interviewed you, your partner was pregnant.
Yep.
That's how long
Yep,
ago
yep.
it was. That's wow.
Flies.
Yeah,
Time
and
flies.
you're a father. You have a full time job. Every weekend, pretty much, you're doing something art related. Guys, just last weekend, Pedro is in Lisbon. I'm in the south of Portugal, which is about a 3 to 4 hour drive, ish, give it or take. He was here sketching and spending the weekend with family as well, so kind of double dipping on both. And it's really inspiring to me how you are balancing your work,
Yeah,
your art, both making and teaching, because that is not part of your job, your
yeah.
day job, and also being with your partner and your son and your family and balancing all of that out. I struggle just with two, my job and my family, let alone a third there. So kudos to you. I have no idea how you do it. I'm not going to go into the loophole of how do you do it, because really it's just you sleep a little bit less. You get a lot of support from
Sometimes,
family.
sometimes that does happen, but like most of the times it's for a good cause. And if not, having the baby was really, it was kind of a big deal because it gets much easier to filter out the chaff from the wheat
Mm.
in sense of in terms of like work opportunities and also like social opportunities and everything. And I try to blend everything together. I mean, it's like work has to feel fun, fun has to feel family, family has to feel work. No, that's not right. But you know what I mean. Everything has to overlap, just if just for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't get like I don't like to partition these parts of my life so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like if I'm going on a sketch meeting, I try to take my family with me so that there's like a slight overlap there.
Yep.
If I'm doing some work, it has to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So all these overlaps help me to balance things out.
Keep your sanity in check.
Even, yeah, also sanity checks. uh, but yeah, it hasn't been easy, but it gets easier with time.
Are you planning on going full time with art anytime in the future?
Yeah, I would like to very much. I'd like that very much.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly how long it will take, but definitely in the horizon.
So
And like when you say full time arts, I already am a full time
you
artist
are
in the sense that I work in an architecture office as an illustrator. So it's art, so to speak. It's art serving the architecture business.
exactly what I meant is what you're about to say. Just focusing on the art that brings you
Yeah.
the most fun, as you were saying.
Yeah. And even that, I can't even pinpoint one thing. Like there's of course artists that what they want to do is just spend time in the studio and creating
Mm-hmm.
creating art pieces and everything. And I was never really much for that in that path. I kind of like 25% teaching, 25% architectural illustration, 25% live sketching, and 25% some other things. So it's like I like to keep my art projects varied. To you.
All right, let's wrap up this interview. So, any last words for those of us out there who are either wanting to get better at art, trying to wrap up our projects, figuring out how on earth we balance everything together, because so many of us are hobbyists and not professional artists trying to just find time to make art. So yeah, what are your words there for those of us?
All right, so I'll address the busy people in the room. Those that I think those that need more advice and more help are those that say I don't have time for art. So even 10 minutes a day is progress. It's not much, but it's progress. So Even if you can like just chunk out like 10 minutes a day for a quick sketch, that maybe will change your life a little bit. Yeah, just give yourself that time to do something, to do a little bit of art. If you don't find that the result is appealing, at least you did it, and it's part of you now. It's part of your process. So the art is not what's in the canvas or what's in the paper, but it's what stays with you when you go through it, when you go through the path.
And that's a wrap for today. But before we go, we have a special treat for you. Pedro is doing a completely free live demonstration on September 1st at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you'd like to get some actionable tips on sketching people, just join us. All the links are on the post associated with this episode at etrolab.com/Loureiro2. That's the number 2, and I'll spell the word for you. That's Loureiro, and then the number 2. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and until next time, make more art.